Pacifiers. This is a big topic. I want to talk for a long time about pacifiers. This has actually been a long time in coming, this live. I've done posts on pacifiers before, and I get a lot of questions about them. So I want to kind of do a deep dive. One of the last posts that I did was actually talking about your cylindrical pacifiers and about how much, as a speech therapist and lactation consultant, I recommend cylindrical pacifiers. And I had people, lactation consultants, speech therapists from Europe, reach out and be like, well, we never recommend cylindrical ones. We always recommend flat or orthodontic. So what did I do? I did a deep dive into the evidence-based research, and I started talking to colleagues and looking at different pacifiers and why we would use one over the other. So a pacifier, let's start at the very basics. A pacifier is a replacement for the breast, period. So the nature's natural pacifier is sucking on a mother's nipple. A mother's nipple actually changes size and shape to fill baby's mouth, and the tongue should come and cup around the maternal nipple. The tongue should extend over the border of the lower gums, and the middle of the tongue should pump up and down in order to effectively latch and suck from a maternal nipple. The nipple should go in round and come out round. So traditionally in the United States, we recommended pacifier shapes that were round because in our mind, well, that's the shape that we want a mother's nipple. We want it to go in round and come out round. So that historically, that's why we saw round nipple shapes. Okay, pacifiers are a tool in the parenting bag of tricks. They are a choice. I typically recommend in my practice that they are for very short use, meaning after a feeding, if you have a baby with reflux, where we are helping them rest and digest. For a very fussy baby where you are just trying to gather things to get ready for a feeding, you need 5 minutes to use the bathroom, you got to go grab your water, but you're going into the feeding. They should not be to delay a feeding because it's not time yet, okay? In the car, when you can't physically get to the baby and you are on your way to a location, and to help transition to sleep if you are choosing not to have baby fall asleep at the breast. It is normal, natural, biological for baby to fall asleep at the breast. The breast to sleep is a good natural tool, and I'm always of the opinion that at any age a baby can fall asleep at the breast. That's a good healthy thing to do. But if you are choosing to replace that, that's a cool option as well. Then once the baby is asleep, pacifier should come out. AAP, American Academy of Pediatrics, also recommends using a pacifier to help baby transition to sleep. Their literature says it can reduce the risk of sudden infant death syndrome when used as a tool through the first 6 months of life. In all of those scenarios, the big thing is we want to limit pacifier use, meaning take it out as soon as it's done its job. Once the baby's calm, once the baby's asleep, once the baby has digested. So the pacifier should not be a baby shutter upper where it is left in the mouth for a prolonged period of time. Now let's look at the evidence body of research. I have really honestly changed my opinions about pacifier because of it. There's a study called the Functional Comparison of Pacifiers using finite element analysis. Okay, it is in the evidence body of research. And what they basically did is we now have the science and technology to study pacifiers and how they impact a baby's mouth. So the long and the short of it, what they found in their research is that regardless of the shape, whether it was cylindrical, round, flat, or orthodontic, they all eventually impacted palatal development. But how it impacted development was different based on the kind of pacifier that was used. And their main takeaway was you want to have the correct size, shape, and length pacifier for that baby and be using it for the least amount of time to reduce that risk of changing the palate. So how do we take away with this, right? So the long and the short of it is, in my clinical mind, when I am working on sucking, I will still always recommend a cylindrical pacifier like the Dr. Brown's, the Avent Soothie, the Lily and Me, and the Ninico. when we are working on coordinating suck, swallow, breathe, and or working on breastfeeding to promote the tongue cupping needed to help baby come back to breast. These are therapeutic in my mind to help bring a baby back to breast. They serve a function and a feature. I don't like the Ryan and Rose. It's just too short. I don't like the Nano BB, again, really short, and I don't like the bibs because it's just so big and bulky, right? But if you are not using it as a suck training tool, we do know babies should keep their tongue up on the roof of their mouth all the time when they're not eating and when they're asleep. That tongue on the roof of the mouth promotes good palatal development for having a good flat palate and nice open nasal passages. I have heard that some clinicians like the orthodontic or the flat nipples because the tongue posture at rest when sleeping is up on the roof of the mouth when sucking. So these pacifiers can work well when transitioning a baby to sleep or to calm them when they're sucking for resting and digesting. So my new opinion on pacifiers is if you're doing it for a purpose, cylindrical helps with oral motor skills. If you're just using it to soothe and calm your baby, use whatever works for your baby. Okay, so if they won't take a round Soothie or a Dr. Brown's, but you're only using it occasionally in the car or to help them transition to sleep, use whatever pacifier they'll take. Orthodontic, the Passy, this is the Passy. I found a lot of really good success with this for soothing and calming babies. Now, my other caveat is when looking for a pacifier, you want an all one-piece pacifier. This is all one piece. Not my favorite, but if your baby will take it and it's just to pacify and soothe, go for it. Really cute. I've had a couple babies that are on this one-piece pacifier, right? This is a one-piece pacifier. The Ninico is a one-piece because this silicone actually extends all the way around. I don't like pacifiers like the MAM where it's a hard plastic to silicone because this can actually, with time and sucking, be bit through and come apart. The entire silicone can come off of the back. So if you're going to do one of these, right, orthodontic pacifiers, I'm not a fan of the two-piece. So if you're going to do one, you want one that's all one piece where it's not going to be a choking hazard. Always throw these pacifiers out if there's any warping or cracking or damage in that silicone. So I have changed my mind based on evidence-based research and talking with other professionals. If you're using a pacifier as a suck training tool with a lactation consultant, my preference is still Dr. Brown's, Lily and Me, Ninico, and the Soothie. That can again help with tongue cupping for a purpose of helping baby come back to breast or transitioning to a bottle when we need to have baby practice sucking on something other than mom's nipple. And if you're just using it to soothe your baby, pick whatever pacifier that baby will take. Being mindful that you do want to have a good size for your baby's mouth. This would be for a very young newborn baby because they're much smaller. And then you're looking for a bigger nipple when baby's bigger. Okay, so most of these brands will have them 0 to 3 months, 3 to 6, 6 to 9 months plus. So there you have it. The research basically says you're going to change the shape of the palate. It will be different whether that's with a cylindrical pacifier or with an orthodontic. Just depends on where you're changing that shape. But with limited use, appropriate use as a tool, you can limit how that's changing your baby's palate. So there's my opinion. Let me know your thoughts on that. That's a lot to digest, but now you know.